First item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the October 2019 commission meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Second item is a request by Ms. Pam Egert of Chapman Street to install an all-way stop at the intersection of Chapman Street at Warren Street. Hey, Ms. Egert? Okay, if you want to just come to the podium and identify yourself, please.
Hi, yes, I'm Pam Eggert on 70 Chapman Street.
Okay.
And what I had requested was a four-way stop there because it's really difficult to see, and especially when you're coming north on Chapman. And I could use an example today, is not only was it difficult to see because of the house next door has a 3-foot wall plus the landscaping, but cars were parked all the way up to the corner, and it's just an unsafe condition.
Okay. Thanks. Saj?
Good afternoon, Chief. Thank you. I looked at the area and I also looked into it a little bit, and certainly all-way stops have to meet certain warrants and criteria through the manual on uniform traffic control devices. Some of those things, certainly it's driven by engineering studies, but some of the questions that you must meet and look at is, where the volume of traffic at the intersecting roads is approximately equal, which I don't think that's necessarily the case with Highland and Chapman. And they also look at collision data there as well. I did look at the collision data within our system for reported accidents, and we've only had 2 accidents there in the past 3 years. And one was actually with a vehicle coming southbound on Chapman Street at Warren, and the other one was actually because of a vehicle that was, the windshield was covered in snow, and didn't see a vehicle pulling out. One of the criteria is certainly 5 or more reported crashes within 12 months, so we wouldn't be able to achieve that either. There are some other things going on up there that I don't know if you'd like to talk about as far as improvements by the kind of school that may help.
Okay.
But at this point, I don't know if we'd meet the criteria for all-way stop at that intersection.
Okay. Did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I also, even if there haven't been the crashes, to have to go into the intersection 6-10 feet to be able to see from that way is, not an ideal situation. I really do think it's a safety issue, and not being able to see. And so, in general, what I have found, for having lived in other parts of the country, people are pretty nice here, but to be out there and then all of a sudden have somebody coming around that corner, because it is, you can't see when people are coming around that corner. I think that
Right.
something should be done right there to be able to stop that
Right,
flow.
and I understand what you're saying, but we do have to kind of meet certain criteria. Mr. Mee is not here today, and my concern too with it was when you're coming to, going towards Waltham, there's kind of a bend in the road there to just come up to a stop sign too. But one thing that, just to throw out there, I know, I'm not sure when we approved it, but I think it's been within the last year, but that we approved a traffic island to go in front of the Cunniff School to slow the cars down coming down Warren Street. So that is on the books. We have to just find out when that's going to be placed in. So that is going to help.
And what is the,
It's a raised table.
no, I know what that is. What is the miles per hour right in that section for that street?
30 miles per hour. In the school zone, it's 20. So if you're coming out of Chapman Street onto Warren, just to the left, you'll see that. That's the beginning of the school zone to your left.
Okay, so if you're putting that in front of the school, there's still a nice distance between that and the
Right,
intersection
but-
that people can easily speed back up.
No, I understand that, but this is what we deal with on just about every
Okay.
street in
Are
Watertown.
there other possibilities of things that
I mean,
you could do?
I'm looking at just what you're saying too, is like just the architectural design up there. Like, is there, like that corner there, is there something we can do to make the line of sight better, or we can take a look at that? But if those cars, we can look at if those cars, if they're illegally parked too. This is something, unfortunately, this is Watertown, and a lot of the cities, on a lot of the streets, it becomes that issue. So, like the sergeant said, but per DOT. We have to meet certain standards for, we just can't put in.
I totally
in
agree. I
items, so.
understand that. But you, as you said, there is that curve, and then there's 6 feet between the wall that's there and the landscaping that's there. And so you've got it compounded in
Yeah.
that particular one. So I don't know if you can't do a four-way stop, can you do a flashing? Can you do something that slows people or makes it more equal that people can get out there?
Okay. And that's something we can ask the DPW or World Tech to take a look at, the design of,
Yeah.
up there at that intersection.
If I could just ask you one question, is it more the vegetation on the wall or cars parked on the street?
It's less cars parked on the street. That's an unusual thing.
All
It
right,
just
so it's
happened to
more
be
the
there
wall.
today.
Yeah,
But
we
it
can-
is the curve plus the wall.
We can
'Cause-
also look into that from a zoning perspective in terms of the site distance on the corner, depending on how high the wall and fence and vegetation are, we might be able to do something about that. So I'll have the zoning enforcement officer look at that.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, and we'll look at it, and then when that raised table comes in, let's see how that affects it too. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item number 3 is a continued discussion originally brought by Miss Lucy Ashbahane of Evan Street to limit the effective days and times of 1-hour parking restrictions. Sergeant Sampson, the Watertown Police Department, to request removal of 1-hour parking restrictions on Waltham Street, Evan Street, and remove 1-hour parking signage on Buick Street. Sergeant Sampson.
Thank you, sir, and Ms. Ashbayan is here with us as well today. Would you like me to start and just kind of give a quick synopsis? Okay. Well, this came before us, Ms. Ashbayan came before us to the Traffic Commission in September of 2019, asked us to look at the restricting the 1-hour parking to certain days of the week and certain hours and whatnot. One of the other questions she asked is, do we know the purpose or the reason for the 1-hour parking in the area of Evans Street? So thanks to you, Chief, and some of the contacts you have, we found out that the 1-hour parking in the area of Evans and Waltham Street was when Mass Bay Community College was in that area. I looked into that a little bit, and it sounds like they left that area back in 1973. So I don't see any reason for the 1-hour parking in that area. It's not an area that we get a lot of complaints. There's no high demand for turnover in a quick amount of time there. So what I was looking at in the traffic rules and orders, and I gave you within your packet, is the current regulations down there and what the changes would be. And essentially what we would be doing is removing 1-hour parking restrictions on Waltham Street and Evans Street. There is also signage on Buick Street that does not appear in the traffic rules and orders at all. So it's just a matter of asking the DPW to remove those signs. I believe I gave those to you specifically. Hold on one second.
And then you had adding some restrictions on Waltham?
No, Waltham Street would just become 2 hours. 2 hour limits.
In your table, you had deleting those restrictions, but then you had added and following
Yes,
restrictions?
so those would be changed, thank you, that was the page I was just looking for. So Waltham Street, we would be removing the code Cs, which are the 1-hour parkings, and in those areas, it becomes code A, which is the 2-hour, the default
Gotcha.
2-hour parking.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Would you like to add anything? Sure.
I would just like to ask, also, if you guys do approve that, when would that be effective? When would the signage go down? So in case anybody gets tickets, we know the effective date, that it would be taken effect.
So what normally happens is if the Traffic Commission approves this request, I then have to go back, I take care of all the minutes of the meeting, I send a notification to the town manager, who then reviews and accepts it, and if he does, then it goes and it has to become part of public notification. So it has to be in the newspaper and media and whatnot, so that the neighborhood is aware of it. Once that's done, after a period of time, I get a signed copy of the regulation and the change of restriction. So you're probably talking 6 to 8 weeks with the holidays coming up.
Okay, that was my question. So if anybody gets a ticket between those times, would they still have to pay the
Right
1
now,
hour?
the 1 hour would still be in effect
Okay,
until it is approved and signed by the manager.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the changes on Waltham, Evans, and Buick Street as recommended by Sergeant Sampson to remove 1 hour parking and institute 2 hour parking.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for coming in. Okay, item number 4 is a request by Mr. Nick Moroso of Channing Road to restrict parking on the west side of Channing Road from numbers 12 and 14 Channing Road to Orchard Street.
I'm Nick Moroso, 5 and 7 Channing Road. Okay. That area is heavily congested by people who use the field for walking the track, any events there. The events are exceptionally bad, where people looking for a place to park, if they could park in the middle of the field and jump out and get into the stands, they'd do it. I've had them park in my driveway and walk across. I've had them block my driveway and walk across. They park on both sides of Channing Road. If in a normal day like today, when there's no events over there, just the people walking the track or being in the field, they try to park as close to the field as they can, and that's right there. It's at the end of Channing Road. My neighbor who is on Orchard Street has his driveway on Channing Road. Then there's my driveway on Channing Road. Then there's a space for one vehicle in front of my house. Then there's another driveway.
Yeah.
On the opposite side, the west side, there's a space for about, I'm guessing, 2 vehicles to be parked comfortably. Maybe 3 if you squeeze them in. Then there's a driveway which belongs to 79 Orchard Street. Another driveway that belongs to 12 and 14 Channing.
Yep.
And then there's a hydrant. I'm requesting that there be no parking on the west side from that hydrant, which you can't park in front of anyway. Well, that's where the first I might have to go. 2 driveways you can't obstruct. I don't know what the legal limit is to park from the end of the driveway down to give them clearance. So you end up with effectively 2 spaces. That area gets so choked with parking just during a normal day. I've seen UPS trucks back out, FedEx trucks back out. I saw a Mason's dump with a leaf shredder pulled behind it on a trailer back out, or a landscaper. They couldn't get up the road. I don't know how a fire apparatus would get up that road. It's exponentially worse during the football games. It's hell. And that doesn't even get into trying to get out of the driveway when anything's happening in the field. My family's owned that property since the 50s, as far as I can figure it out. And we've had to deal with this on a continuous basis, and it's painful during events. All I'm looking for is a little bit of relief on the west side so that there's a good flow going through there, because there's plenty of places up the street. 50 feet up the street, there's all the parking you want. But ironically, the people that are parking here to exercise, to walk the track, can't walk the extra 50 feet.
All right.
And the irony is just kills me.
Okay.
So does the traffic problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sergeant Sampson.
Thank you, sir. I had a few conversations with Mr. Moroso on this, and, certainly we know what happens when there's football games and events in that area, and Channing Road is not unusual with the other streets, Bradford and whatnot in the area. They do kind of go into that area. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of parking facilities for any of our parks or schools here in town. It's just the age of the town itself. But I did look at that area on the west side. Mr. Moroso is accurate as far as the driveways and whatnot there. In that first picture that I gave to you, that you can see the 158 feet, that's actually from Orchard Street up to, actually, it would be 16 Channing Road, because as Mr. Moroso said, there is a hydrant in front of 1214, which makes it, the positioning of that hydrant makes the section in front of 1214 Channing Road a no parking area, because you'd be 10 feet from that hydrant either way, and you'd be blocking either the driveway to 1214 or the one for 16. So there should be nobody parking there anyway. There are some legal spaces that I think that you can maintain on that west side of the street instead of taking out that whole area. I would suggest they redid that intersection not too long ago, and there's a new section of granite curbing on the west side. And, I did go up there with Mr. Aiello from the Department of Public Works. measured that out, that I think there'd be an awful lot of relief by just going from Orchard Street northerly 48 feet. And that would actually open up that intersection. It would open up the driveway for the house on Orchard Street, as well as Mr. Moroso's. Now, I know we don't do it 4 driveways across the street, because that would open up a precedent for many other homes and areas in town. But, you know, coming in with the geography of that intersection, I think at least starting with the restriction of 48 feet north of Orchard Street would make a big difference in that area. We did measure the width of the street as well, and it does meet the town's guidelines for a 24-foot width.
Okay.
of the street.
Any other comments?
So it is 24 feet from curb to curb, which, you know, is our standard, and I certainly wouldn't be in favor of the 158 feet. The sergeant's recommendation of 48 feet here to the corner is not that dissimilar from what's required anyway. Parking from, you know, within the intersection, and I think that might provide some relief, so I guess I would be supportive of that 48-foot, you know, parking here to corner.
Okay.
I just have a question. Where does that 48-foot point?
You know the new granite curbing across the street from your house?
Yeah.
Where that ends, that would be from there all the way to Orchard Street. So where
Where
the
it
asphalt,
ends.
so across the street from your driveway,
See a picture?
there's like,
See a picture, yep.
it's like asphalt, there's like an asphalt berm for the sidewalk.
Yes, okay, yeah,
Yeah, so that section there,
yeah.
because the legal spaces are here, and I think they're far enough away. And coincidentally, it would offer you relief here.
This isn't as big an issue.
Right.
As, this gets choked under this tree in front of my house. That's where I see the vehicles backing out. I saw it again yesterday. as a
Right.
matter of fact. It was that, the dump truck that I mentioned was what backed out. I was looking to go, if I could, a little further back, like to the tree, as I mentioned. It has no bearing on this, but many, many years ago, and I wish I could relive all of those years, because we're like 50 or so, there was a sign on that tree. It said, "No parking here at the corner." And even though the sign was there, people would still park there during the games. I mean, people are people, they're lazy. If we could get it back to that tree, it would help. And this isn't just to get out of the driveway. It's true congestion on the street at the bottom of Channing Road, where if there's a vehicle parked under that tree and in front of my house, you can't get through there. 24-foot road, 2 8-foot vehicles and mirrors. The fire apparatus is 8 feet, as far as I remember. They're not going to get up that road. And you can park a foot away from the curb legally, right? So now you got a negative path. All I was trying to do was to eliminate the left side, the west side, up to the hydrant. Because people, they're attracted to the bottom. And yes, Bradford and Fuller do have the same issues, but they're not right at the entrance to the field. And that's the attraction. People want to park right there. And that's why I was trying to get it at least to that tree, which is another 20 feet? I'm guessing, I don't know for a fact.
Well, you know, I think there's a couple of things there. One, you know, the width of the road being 24 feet is a town standard.
Yes, it is.
To have traffic going and allowing parking on either side. So I understand if it's a large vehicle or somebody doesn't park next to the curb, you know, that can constrain things, but that is our town standard. So, you know, in effect, if we're going to put up no parking signs to restrict parking where there is 24 feet curb to curb, that situation exists all over town, and I think that would create.
But what does not exist, excuse me, what does not exist is the, what do they call that? Attractive nuisance of like a pool in your yard having to have a fence. The field, this has been a bane since my grandmother bought that house.
Well, and, you know, obviously, you are in a unique situation, you and all your neighbors in that area being adjacent to Victory Field, and as you said, when there's events, I'm sure people are parking all over the place. And I'm sure some of them will even ignore the no parking here to corner sign. But I think it would make sense to put it at the 48 feet, as the sergeant has suggested, which is give you a little clearance to the intersection which I think is appropriate because cars swinging around an intersection, making turns, that makes some sense to me. I think the further up the street we go, though, we're creating more of a precedent issue where we're not doing that in other parts of town and
Well,
not
if-
creating that situation.
You can't park 10 feet either side of the hydrant, which would, as Sergeant said, it eliminates 12, 14. You can't obstruct the two driveways. So now you're talking about a few feet from the 79 Orchard Street driveway to the corner, and we're talking about effectively one parking space.
Yep.
It has nothing to do with exiting my driveway. I can get out of there if I need to. I used to drive semi. That's not the issue. The issue is people parking however they want. And in front, I don't know if the sergeant saw it or not, but in front of my house and directly across the street, people actually park with their curbside tires in the middle of what should be grass. Because it's so tight in there, they don't want to get hit.
But
There's actually one parked there today that's parked on the curb. Both tires are on the curb.
And again, that's, 24-foot from curb to curb, which is a standard for, a town street.
Yep.
And allows parking. The other thing I would say is if we did move it further up the street, I think it's more likely people would park between there and the corner and not even ever see the sign that says no parking here to corner.
Signs aren't relatively
Far up.
inexpensive. There could be two signs.
Well, again, I think it makes sense, at least, and I'm just speaking as one member, but I think it makes sense to have it in proximity to the intersection. I think leaving one space there for parking makes sense, and that's my opinion.
And I agree. I think we're creating a precedent. I understand that, but, we're going to have the issue with every street up there.
What you don't understand is the issue.
No, I do
is it's
understand.
right in front of the house. It's
No,
not
and
down
so
toward
we're
Orchard
trying
Street.
to do something to alleviate
Yeah,
that issue.
and I appreciate it.
And we'll
I
see how it
genuinely
goes.
appreciate it.
But you got to understand our perspective is that with the 24 feet, that we're opening ourselves up to a precedent
and
that.
I understand
So
that.
our thing is like, you know what, we'll try the 48, see how it looks. If there's a situation where cars are parked illegally, call us and we'll come up there and we'll put the parking
Chief,
enforcement
excuse
up
me,
there.
I've called the station many times. I've talked to the duty officers. The
Okay.
duty officers don't even want to listen to me.
Well, I guess
called the
I
station, they
think
told
what
me to
happened.
talk to the duty
at the game,
officer,
but where there's
which I
no,
did.
okay, can I speak? All
sorry.
right. So what I am telling you, when we put the signs up there, okay, people are going to continue to park there when there's a game. I'm not going to sit here and
Yeah,
say
but
they're
there's
not.
at least repercussions.
And then, can I finish?
I'm sorry.
All right? And then the officers will go up there. And if you
Yep.
speak with an officer that doesn't do anything, then you can call me and I will take care of that side of it, okay? Do you have a motion?
I'd make a motion to replace a no parking here to corner 48 feet from Orchard Street on Channing Road.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
It just as an aside, over the years, when you make a long one side of the street, no parking, people on the other side, they're fighting amongst the neighbors. We've had many situations like that.
already ongoing. We don't
Yeah, yeah. I just thought I'd mention it.
And they all park in front of my house. And the one on the other side is 4 cars. And so if it's not them, it's them. I actually had a very nasty note placed on my windshield, parked in front of the house. You have a driveway, I have no place to park. That was a woman renting at 65 Orchard.
Yeah.
What's that got to do with me?
This is it.
Yeah, really.
Okay, item number 5, request by District E Councilor Kenneth Woodland to install an isolated stop sign on King Street southbound at Grandview Avenue. Sergeant Sampson.
Thank you, sir. Received a request from Councilor Woodland, and also received a similar request from a constituent of his and a resident of that area, asking for a sign that she believed wasn't missing, that just was never installed there. Certainly, we're not required to have a stop sign at every intersection, but I did look at that area. Also looked in the traffic rules and orders and noticed that an isolated stop sign is not listed for King Street at Grandview. The resident did mention to me that she had a near head-on collision there for someone that did not stop when they got to the top of King Street. And because she lives in the area, she sees many near misses fairly regularly. So at this time, the request from the counselor would be an isolated stop sign on King Street for southbound traffic at Grandview Ave.
Okay. Any conversation?
I'm sorry, you said a stop sign on Grandview?
On King Street
On King Street?
for southbound traffic at Grandview.
Okay, gotcha. Was there any more information that the resident had offered about the concern, just that they'd have a near miss? And it's a T intersection, so people on King Street aren't, they're gonna have to slow down to make the turn.
Right.
It's not a four-way intersection where they could continue right through the intersection. I don't know.
Is there any accident data at this location?
There's no accident data at that incision. I went back 3 years, and I couldn't find any at that intersection.
Did you have any discussion with DPW at all about this?
I did not.
Neither have
I think maybe, why don't we table it and talk with Mr. Me when he's back on that?
Yeah, I think that's probably.
Any agreement?
Good idea.
All right.
Yeah, because obviously, if it's warranted and makes sense, we'd certainly want to have it there, but on the other hand, we don't want to do that if not. So I would make a motion that we continue that to the next
Second.
traffic commission meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item number 6 is a request by Mr. Harry Palmer at Templeton Parkway to restrict parking on the south side of Edgecliff Road from a point 32 feet west of Templeton Parkway to Templeton Parkway. Sergeant Sampson.
Thank you, sir. If you remember, Mr. Palmer came to the October meeting, and the Traffic Commission approved a yield sign at the southerly intersection of Edgecliff at Templeton. After the meeting, the requester, Mr. Palmer, then asked me that the Traffic Commission consider a parking restriction on the northerly intersection of these two streets. That area has been recently reconstructed, that you can see in the photos that I provided to you. There is a new curb line there. It provides a better approach to the intersection, but cars are parking near the intersection, which is causing a hazard. And as you can see from the cruiser that we parked there, that certainly it looks like a legitimate space, but it does block the approach to the intersection. I went up there as well with Mr. Aiello from the Department of Public Works, measured out the area, got his opinion on it as well. He would also be in support of a 32-foot restriction on Edgecliff prior to Templeton.
I agree. I went by there just before the meeting, and there was a car parked the wrong direction there as well, and it just made it very difficult to get around. Any other conversation?
I went by there the other day, and I thought it was definitely necessary.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Make a motion, we approve a stop sign at the corner of Templeton Parkway and Edgecliff.
No packets.
I'm sorry, no parking. I'm sorry. Not a stop sign. Stop sign's already there. No parking, 32 feet back from the stop sign, or from the intersection.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 7, request by Sergeant Sampson of the Watertown Police Department to restrict parking on Maple Street in the following manner. A, south side from Galen Street to the Newton line, no parking. B, the north side from the Newton line to a point 40 feet east of Galen Street, 2-hour parking. And C, the north side from a point 44 east of Galen Street to Galen Street, no parking. Sergeant Sampson.
Thank you, Chief. This actually originated from a question from Ms. Weiner, the traffic planner here in Watertown. She received a concern from a resident there that people were starting to park on the south side of Maple Street, where the homes are there, and causing a lot of congestion in that area. Went up, assessed the area. The north side of the street, the south side of the street, it has typically been no parking, but the traffic rules and orders restrictions don't reflect the current practices in that area. At this point, on the south side, we do have a restriction that you can't park from Galen Street to a point 60 feet east. We have no signage or restrictions beyond that, but once you get to the Newton line, there is no parking on that side of the street. My recommendation would be to make the entire south side of Maple Street no parking. So that would go from Galen Street right to the Newton line. On the south side of the street, again, this is not reflected in the traffic rules and orders. From the Newton line to a point about 40 feet prior to Galen Street, there's 1-hour parking signs. They're not in the traffic rules and orders, and I don't have any indication of how those originated. But certainly that's an area where 1-hour or 2-hour parking wouldn't make a difference. So I would request changing the 1-hour parking signs, removing those, and removing the restriction that's in the traffic rules and orders, and making that 2-hour parking from the Newton line to a point 40 feet east of Galen Street, and then leaving that current restriction so that it keeps the mouth of that intersection open. So 40 feet east to Galen Street should be open.
Okay, thank you, Sergeant. I agree with you as well. Any other comments?
Makes
Do
sense to
we
me.
have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the recommendation of Sergeant Sampson for no parking from Galen Street to the Newton line, and no parking from Newton line 2-hour parking from Newton line to a point 40 feet east of Galen Street, and then no parking from that point to Galen Street.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 8, any new business? Hearing no new business? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving.